So first of all, thank you very much for taking the time out
Thank
to
you.
be interviewed, to come on. Um, Definitely want to have in mind as well. So with your background of the various martial arts you've done, I think this will be a very interesting one for the viewers as well. So the first thing
Mhm.
I'll do is go back to the beginning. So I've read a bit about your life as well. And when I read about your childhood, there was quite a lot going on there. So but why don't you tell us about your childhood, how things are when you're younger, when you're growing up? Because you went through quite a lot from what I've read.
Well, you know, I think my childhood was pretty like common, like you and I are about the same age. So like I'm the type of person where I'm like my story is my own, but it's like many other people's as well. So I think like the older you get to, you just kind of go, shit happens, right? And like overall I think I had a very good childhood with my dad. My dad raised me. My dad raised I had a younger sister who was 4. I was about 7, and then I have a brother that was 10. And so, my parents were married, and then my mom took off, and my dad raised us. And so I was talking to somebody about this the other day where my dad, we were never in want for anything. Okay. My dad worked 60 to 80 hours a week. That's what you did back then. He put us before everything. On top of that, he never, very rarely missed a soccer game or a basketball game or a softball game. Like we were in sports. My dad was a really great athlete. And there's a college in America in Philly called St. Joe's. And they were like a rival with Temple, and really big school. It was a private Catholic school back in the day, and I think it's co-ed now. But my dad still holds the discus record there. So my dad did track and field. He was a really crazy athlete. And anyway, so my dad really instilled sports. I was 4 when he put me into soccer. My brother was a great athlete. My younger sister, not so much a great athlete, but always encouraged us. I always say to him, I'm only like I don't know what the percentage would be, but even the person that I am because of my dad. My dad always raised us with, you can do anything that you want to do. You can go anywhere that you want to go. My dad was I'm a daddy's girl, like through and through. And he was my biggest fan, my biggest supporter. And that's some of the greatest memories I have of him. Like I said, he was an English teacher as well. He taught history. One of those guys where he could watch Jeopardy and like know every single answer. He's just that guy, and he was a voracious reader. So at that time when we were kids, there wasn't all. I read a lot. I think that's mostly why I'm as well spoken and eloquent. I can write very well. My dad really instilled that. Um, so but at the same time, when your parent is working like that, we were latchkey kids. And that was normal for the 80s, this like 70s, whatever, early 80s. And my sister's 4, I'm 7, and I'm cooking whole meals. My brother's running around, who knows where the hell he is. And then my dad gets home, and it's like, okay, you know, and he loved us. And that's the greatest memories, and like I didn't start getting into a lot of trouble. I had a lot of problems with my mom, which carried on later. But I didn't start really. I did get into trouble. The first time I got into a fight, I was in 2nd grade, and I broke somebody's nose. So I like when people go, why were you, fighting and violent? I feel like um, it's in your bloodline. There's some people that are just born with it. And I was definitely born with it. And that's why my dad was like, we have to put her in something. It wasn't martial arts, but like I was like crazy. Imagine that, right? So like bouncing off the walls, right? All of us, all 3 of us, we were like crazy kids. And again, and that was the outlet, very cathartic. That gave me an avenue. I was excelled in sports. And then, I really started getting into big trouble when my mom came back in like 12, 13, and it's just, you know, you're really left to your own devices with that type of parent. So
I mean, you often hear the eldest daughter is the carbon copy of the father. So is that the case for you as well?
I feel like that, I do have a lot of my mom's traits too. She's a very smart woman too, but different from my dad, like both very street smart, came from like the projects in both sides. My mom is from some Wilmington, which is like in San Pedro in LA area, and like they grew up in the projects. My dad did on the East Coast, but they had very similar backgrounds, very traumatic. But my dad was the one that kind of like, this is the irony, right? Where it's like he took that and overcame, and I never heard him. He was always very positive, always very positive. I never heard him complain. I never heard him say, I have to do this, I have to do that, which is like where I get that part. And then you have the other one that was like, you know, she'll steal the shirt off your back if she could type of person.
So
But
you mentioned your father in Philly. So where did you grow up there? Was it? I heard Chicago. Is that correct?
I was born in Chicago, and my dad was working out there for a job. He was, had come out to my older brother was born in California, and then that's where my mom is from. And then they had moved to Chicago for work. My dad had gotten a job. He was working for Xerox, and then he did real estate later on. So he was the first person in his family to go to university. And he worked very, very, very hard for everything he had. And then, came back to California, and I was raised there. So we only spent a couple of years, I think, in Chicago, but we went back there quite a bit on and off.
Okay. So you mentioned about getting started in combat sports. So what's the reason you got started in combat sports? Because you enjoy fighting outside?
Yes. So, like I said, like honestly, since I was born, I was just always very like hitting things and getting into trouble. And um, I went to, I've been fighting all through like junior high, high school, elementary school. It's really kind of interesting. And I went to 5 different high schools in 3 years for
Wow.
fighting. And I graduated from a continuation school, because I got kicked out and they wouldn't accept me. And I could have gotten a scholarship for soccer. I mean, I had soccer. They were scouting me in junior high. I was that good. And I was rebelling. I was a bad kid. I was a really, really bad kid. So even through all that time when I was in soccer and doing sports, like I said, once it was like 8th grade, ninth, and it was a wrap. I pretty much after 9th grade stopped playing any type of sport. I had gotten kicked out to another high school and where my dad, because he was moving a lot for work. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm going to just try out for a sport. And I made varsity softball when I was a freshman. So like I just was very like athleticism was like my gift. Right. And so with that just came, I was very nonchalant about it. And again, I was fighting a lot, and I was doing drugs, and I was not going to school, and I really wasn't concerned about going to college. So when I was 17, I graduated and I took my proficiency exam, and I moved from LA, Redondo Beach, Torrance area to Orange County by myself. And I had an apartment over in Huntington Beach, and then I moved in with a boyfriend. And then like I've had my own place since I was 17 years old. And I was really on my own since I was 15 because I was running the streets and doing what kids do, you know?
Mm. So
So
when you went into combat sports, what was the first combat sport you tried? And did you immediately take to it, or was there a bit of sort of a period where you're thinking maybe this isn't for me?
I think the first time I believe I remember I had to be like 15 when the UFC had just come out,
Oh yeah.
right? This is like 92. Okay, and a
This
lot all my
this
friends, yeah, like 92, right? Because
this is the one Royce Gracie with the Ken Shamrock and the no rules basically.
It's
That one.
gotta be, because I know I was like 15 years old, and my friends at the time, because I'm running on the streets, my friends are like adults, like 30, 35 years old, like a very commonplace. And so we're watching this. I'm like, I can, we're fighting anyway, and I'm like, oh, I can do this. I was really enamored by it and very enthralled with it. I didn't know what it was. No one knew what it was. We just, it was pretty incredible. You would watch boxing. Boxing was on Tuesday night fights. They had all the, that was pretty main place. And then you had kickboxing, which was on like TV as well. So this was, revolutionary. And then I think I was probably 17 when I started training jujitsu. And I had a boyfriend, and he trained somewhere, and I started training. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And I was on and off for a while. I was 17. I started doing kickboxing at some gym when I was 18. And this is Joe Moreira's I was training. So Joe, 30 years later, we still know each other, right? He has a school somewhere in Orange County, but he was the first one I trained with. I trained with Marcus Vinicius when I was 18. He has Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu. And then I trained with Kleber Luciano for a long time. So this is, I'm like 17, 18, 19. This is almost, 30 years ago. So I forget exactly how I came into it. But then I started doing my stand-up with a guy named Sean McCulley, who owned LA Boxing. So LA Boxing eventually was bought out. It was a single gym. And then later on, somebody bought it out and they franchised it.
Okay.
And then UFC Gym bought the rights to that. And so all those UFC gyms that they have around the world, they were originally from the first LA Boxing. And so this is, in Costa Mesa where I'm at, every world champion came through. We had Spadafora came through there and was training. Really? Everybody came to this gym. We had all of like the New Japan pro wrestlers. Antonio Inoki came through there. We had Francis Botha. I couldn't even like name off everybody who came through there. And then the coaches, like the people from Japan, would send a lot of their fighters to come train with the Americans. And, Mark Kerr was training there, like everybody. This was like the gym. So if you're my age and you came from that area or that gym, what an incredible, how impactful, I guess, that location was.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you basically live in by yourself or with someone from the age of 17. So was there any reaction from friends and family for you pursuing fighting, or had you sort of separated yourself from everyone by that point?
I probably went through my dad, even though like I separated myself, I was kind of like the black sheep, I guess, and I was out doing my own thing. And I still had contact with my family, and they just, they knew they couldn't tell me what to do. They knew they couldn't tell me what to do. And my dad always supported it. And I was till the day he was gone, I was his little girl. So even though I'm a grown woman, you're always going to be your parents' like little.
Yeah.
So he just didn't want me to get hurt. And that was the biggest thing. But he was like, I don't know, I'm just not worried. He was worried, but he knew I could take care of myself, so like, again, I don't have some like story where like my dad beat me and like my mom, those are pretty like normal stories too. There's stuff that I won't talk about because I don't feel comfortable, but like I said, my dad was great. I think my mom, I haven't talked to her in many, many years. She's a bad human being. And I'm very open with that. And even coaches who I've known 30 years ago, who I'm still friends with, they know. So, but
You mentioned getting beat from the parents. I mean, I don't know about your culture, but for me, growing up, that's quite normal to get beaten up by your parents.
It's
Not beaten
right.
up, not beaten up, but get beat to me.
It's normal. Well,
Yeah.
I went to Catholic school, and the nuns were still hitting us. Okay, like nuns were still hitting with like rulers and stuff, right? So they, you know, I think my dad was too scared to like put his hands on us. I'm sure there was a few times he wanted to, right? But he just wasn't that guy. But you know, my mom was really like she was the enforcer. I'd call her the enforcer. My
Of course,
dad,
yeah.
the enforcer. We could do whatever we wanted. We were like, my dad would be like, "Go ahead," you know. And the other one, the mean one, she put it down for us, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, my dad got a bit bored of having a go at us here, just set one of my older brothers on me. They do the job. But yeah,
right.
that's just part of growing up, isn't it?
It's yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
so. You know what I mean? There's some
Now it's
things
like
that
a big thing,
absolute.
isn't it? Yeah, now it's a big deal if you get hit by your parents or
Oh, oh
it's like
no. Like I remember my dad, I talked back to him and he smacked me across the face. I deserved it. I deserved it. I would have beat the living shit out of me if I was my kid, right? If I had me, I don't even know how my dad did it with three of us, right? Like bless his
Mm.
heart, you know. But yeah, nowadays there's a kid on the field and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? And they want to sue you,
Yeah, you can be very
you
careful,
know.
don't you, nowadays?
Yeah, we're
Um,
from a different generation, so
yeah, yeah. So you don't. I mean, you you compete in a lot of different martial arts.
yeah.
So why why did you just go from, because you're a professional mixed martial artist, professional boxer, then you came back later in the bare knuckle boxing. So what was it that made you want to go through these different sports? Could they each present a different set of challenges?
Mm,
And then I don't want to say it's an ego thing, um, in a bad way, but it's a good thing because you got to then start from scratch. Whereas some people won't have that ego where they think, I've mastered this one, professional in this sport. Why should I go and start a new discipline, start as a beginner again? Whereas you went from one sport to the
right.
other and learned as
Yeah.
well and competed. And
Uh,
also, what was behind that motivation decision to try different combat sports?
well, you know, when I started doing jujitsu, of course, I did some competitions and I won a few and I lost a few, but I never had the same type of pull, even though I started with ground first, right? People go, you started standing. No, I started with jujitsu, like ground fighting first. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. And am I good at it? Yeah, I'm good at it. But I never had the same pull towards when I started doing stand up. And I was good at that too. You know what I mean? I think I was equal probably at the time. And then eventually, I think maybe my stand up probably surpassed because I was working on that more. Um, but people have to remember, you know, I had my first professional fight in 1999. 1999. So again, this is still the very new thing. This is, you know, 6, 7, 8 years before it's even the commission even approves something like this. So I fought in Aruba, right? So they were doing shows like around the world. It was called World Valley Tudo Extreme. First of all, I know I jump around a lot, but when I started, we were going to do kickboxing, right? I watched
Mm.
Lucia Riker,
Oh
Bridget
yeah.
Riley, Bonnie Canino. I specifically remember watching them. They were on like USA Tuesday Night Fights as well. And I'm like, I can do this. I want to do this, you know, and I'm like a little kid. And Sean McCulley, my first coach, was a kickboxing coach, a really great one. And he had a bunch of Muay Thai fights as well. Um, and he dabbled in MMA. He did a lot of stuff across the board, but he was a very good and well respected coach, and he still is now. And I don't even remember how the opportunity came about. I think somebody probably called him because he was like a hub, right? For many other countries, and they'd go, hey, you got a fighter for this? Hey, you have a fighter for this? Can you send one to the Netherlands, Japan? We're doing something in Thailand. A lot of people trained at that gym. And I was his first like real female fighter. So he goes, okay, I know we're training for like kickboxing, but he goes, what do you think about MMA? And I'm like, I'm fucking 21 years old, thinking I'm such a badass too, right? I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Because I was still fighting every weekend. I'm not joking. We were still going to the bars and we're still getting in fights. Interview anyone from back in that LA boxing time, they'll tell you like every weekend we were getting kicked out of like the local bars around here. And then we'd all go train the next day and then have fights. It's really like a movie, right? So I just went, sure. And Heath Herring fought on this card. Gilbert Ivel fought on this card. Kakareko. All these guys ended up being in Pride and some in UFC. But it was one round. I don't even know if I knew till I got there, to tell you the truth. One round, 15 minutes, a 15-minute round. And I'm like, I really hadn't been trained. I'd only been training like, yes, on and off for a few years, but for this, maybe like several months, right? And I just
where was it held? In the Mayweather gym, 15-minute rounds.
in Aruba, right? So that's why they had a lot of Dutchies. They had a lot of Dutch fighters on there because it's a Dutch island, right? And they put me against this woman who's a grown woman. She's probably in her 30s, right? Her name was Irma Verhoeven. Her husband, they were from like Golden Glory. They were Dutch, right? Another kickboxing or Golden Glory or something. And her husband was a guy named Bob Schreiber who fought in Pride, blah, blah, blah. So when I started fighting, it wasn't to do a career. If you were fighting back then, it was like you like to fight. There wasn't TV deals. There wasn't the UFC. There wasn't modeling opportunities. You like to fight. It was in your blood or some other stuff. You know what I mean? So I did that fight and I got a draw. And I just remember I was so scared. I was like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Why am I here? I got $1,000. And I was like, all right, that's pretty good money, actually, $1,000. And the men fought a 30-minute round, by the way.
Wow.
So it was called 30 minutes. It was called World Valley Tudo Extreme. Frederico Lapenda put it on. And I got a draw. I think I should have probably won, but she was cheating. And so I just remember getting out of there. My face is all fucked up. And they go, what'd you think? What'd you think? And I was like, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Right. But again, it wasn't, we just wanted to fight. I don't think Sean knew, and I don't think I knew that we were like creating a career or in the middle of building something, because I didn't even know people were watching. I didn't have a computer. I didn't even have a computer until like 2003 or 4. And I didn't know there was people online going, hey, these people are fighting in Japan. Right. So I didn't even know people were watching.
Wow. So you competed in these sports and then you retired. So was one of the reasons we should just mention there wasn't enough opportunity was because it's early days for female fighting. Were you competing in different sports because the opposition pool wasn't as large, and so was that a reason for you fighting different martial arts and being a reason for you to retire as well?
Well, yeah, that's what the other question you were asking. So you're like, why were you doing these other combat sports? Because I was going to Japan. So I went to Aruba and then we were flying to Japan. We couldn't go there every month. You know, Sean had a gym to run and like there, if I lived in Japan, I could have probably fought like every other week. You know, they fight all the time. So I started boxing so that I could stay busy. It wasn't to box. It was like to stay busy. And I was like, okay. And I started doing that too.
And these competitions, correct me if I'm mistaken here, you were fighting opposition who were a lot heavier than you as well. It was open weight classes.
In Japan, yeah. I mean, this is why, you know, I mean, of course I grew up old school and I've seen a lot of stuff, and had an older brother who used to beat the shit out of me. So I'm like pretty tough, you know? But we come from a different time and different era in combat sports. So when coach said, okay, this first one's 60 pounds heavier than, man, then coach tells me the other person's 150 pounds heavier than me. Okay. So again, you know, first fight is 15 minutes, 15-minute round. By the way, yeah, she was like 2-1 or something in MMA, Verhoeven, but she was like 40-2 in kickboxing with like only 2 of her losses to Lucia Riker. Okay, so I'd been from the moment I started, a couple times I did get thrown to the wolves with different coaches, but in this beginning, it was like, just go. You're going to just go straight in. And, you know, then when we were fighting in Japan and I'm beating everybody, a lot of those girls, they'd stopped wanting to fight me. Right. So if I wasn't good, they would be like, sure, come over. But I'm beating their people. Right. Oh, this person can't fight you. This person, you know, and we did that remix one, that Marlos Kunin one. We had to fight. If I won, because I was like 160 or something, 65. If I won, I had to fight 4 times. Marlos was like 10 pounds smaller at the time. She only had to fight 3 times. So they go, oh, we know Toughill's good. The first girl they put me against is still the most decorated judo sambo champion in Russia to this day, Radina Arena. And so, right, I beat her. And then they put me against, and she was on the Russian judo team. She was an Olympian. Then they put me against her fucking teammate, Svetlana Gundarenko, who's 6'3", 330 pounds. Okay, like these fights are online, you can see them. And then Megumi Yabashida ended up beating her, who was like 145 pounds at the time. Like, this shit was wild. You have to watch these. It's called Remix. And then there's another one that came out where I fought 3 times in one night. And I beat this one girl. I knocked her out in like 30 seconds, a girl who I'd fought before. Then I fought Marlos Kunin, who ended up being, they were trying to pit us together for years because we were both like the top fucking girls. Marlos, if you know, ended up being the Strike Force featherweight champion, right? And like two of her couple losses were only to Cyborg. I knocked her out. I'm still the only woman to knock her out. I knocked her out in I think the beginning of the second round. And then in the third fight of the night, we have 10 minutes between each fight, right? Like, and then I get disqualified. A girl that I rematched, I broke her arm a few years before that. And then she did something dirty and I went, did like a downward elbow.
Yeah, I read about that.
And they had to take her out in a fucking stretcher. And that's one of my losses, is a disqualification. And for 3 fights, you know what you got if you won 3 fights? 10 grand. Whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-doo.
Things have changed a lot since then, haven't they? On the money front.
Things have probably, I think, a little bit, but that's how I started getting into that. And then I was doing okay with boxing. And then I started beating people. Like, I was never a great boxer. I think if I had just focused on boxing, I probably could have done quite well. But that's not what happened. You know, I had no amateur career, which I would never advise, but it just worked out for me. And I'm, again, getting thrown in with people that are been doing it their whole lives. You know,
that's very interesting, because, but you know, if you go back a number of years, a lot of boxers would have no amateur career and go straight into pro.
You
Billy
would
Conn
know
comes
more
to
than
mind.
me.
Well, someone like Billy Conn, he fought, he was light heavyweight champion, never had an amateur career, and he fought Joe Louis for the heavyweight title, and he was beating Joe Louis until he made a mistake. But it's very interesting because now we've got, you know, Nassim Hamid, the boxer.
Yes.
His son just made his pro debut with no amateur career.
Oh.
So it's very interesting because, you know, you see a lot of guys who start late, say when they fought guys who've been fighting all their lives from a young age, they sort of notice a difference immediately. So was that similar for yourself as well? That when you went to boxing, did you notice there was a difference there, and you had to play catch up by training harder, or was it just pure persistence? Because you've clearly come from a background of fighting, and you grew up fighting, so it's a different mindset. So sometimes that mindset determination makes up for the lack of experience, because you can pressure someone into defeat. Is that something
Exactly.
then you relied on more on your grit and determination then?
Yeah, I think so because, I know people say like, the sport is newer for women and all this, but like if you look back when I was fighting in the super middleweight division, right, during the early and mid 2000s, right, with Layla, with Frazier, with Ann Wolf, the divisions were very deep. These women, we had a lot of incredible boxers. Look at the division now in super middleweight, there's like fucking 4 people in it. I'm right? But it's like you look back there and it was like there was a lot of women that were doing boxing, not so much MMA because no one really knew what the hell it was. And the interesting thing about the MMA was that this is the evolution of the sport. There's nothing new under the sun with boxing, right? We see that there's a way to train. You can create a style which is of your own, but the fundamentals of boxing remain the same, and it'll always remain the same. You take a Prince Nassim or a Mayweather or whatever, okay, because they're so fundamentally sound, then they can create something else only because of those fundamentals. MMA has constantly evolved, right? We even have a new stuff that just like a move, right? In jiu-jitsu or wrestling that could come out today that wasn't around 10 years ago because some phenom developed it, right? Does that make sense?
Mm.
So MMA is always developing. And I don't know how to explain it, but since it was newer back then in terms of putting all these different sports together, the women, we had a lot of great autonomous sport athletes, single sport athletes. Like I said, Olympians, like world champion kickboxers. So in their own right, they were incredible in one sport. Better than a lot of these girls even today in single sports. But it was very new. Like, how do we put this with this with this? And that's what makes MMA so dynamic. I think it is a very hard sport, of course, because you have to be proficient in at least 4 and you have to be able to flow. You don't even have to be great at all of them. You have to be great at putting them all together.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you mentioned as well, being great at one discipline. From
Yeah,
there, from when you master one discipline, you then can branch out into other disciplines,
sure.
and become like a mixed martial artist as well.
Right, right.
So you had your retirement from combat sports, and you went into American Gladiator. So how did that come about? And then why did you then decide to leave American Gladiator to become a fighter again?
Well, I was still fighting during that time. So I didn't even retire from I probably had one or two like in between, right? Like I'm gonna take like a
Just
because I
leave for a bit.
remember. Yeah, I'm like, I'm just fucking whatever. But I mean, I was fighting from 99, 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5 when I fought Ali, then 6, 7. Like I was still very active during this whole time. And then I had gotten the opportunity to do the American Gladiators. It actually, the first season, there was only 2 seasons. The first one came out in '08, and I was like at the peak of my career too, right? Like I was ranked. We had back in that time, we had independent rankings, just like boxing does, like with ESPN, Bleacher Sports, whatever. And they had their independent female rankings. And I was ranked number 1 for 155. Strike Force and all these things didn't even come out till a little bit after. And then you can have these, belts from different organizations. But I was ranked number 2 at 145 after Cyborg. Everybody said I couldn't make 45, and I did. And then I was like, I'm going to fucking beat her ass too. Right. Because eventually we were supposed to fight. And so this was 2008 when the first season came out, and I had a manager, and actually they were trying during that time to also get me to go to the WWE or F at the time, whatever it was.
Okay.
I had opportunities to go to the developmental camp in Kentucky. There was another one that was in, I guess, Florida or whatever. I didn't want to. I could have been a wrestler. I could have been a pro wrestler on TV, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm a fighter. I turned down I ate a lot of crow later on too, because I turned down a lot of opportunities. I had a like, I still have an ego. Of course, you have to be in this sport and to be at the top, but it's not an unchecked one. I'm in my late 20s, like running rogue, and I'm doing very well, making a lot of money, have a lot of nice things for myself. And I was, no, I'm too good for that. I thought I was too good for that. So,
is that something in hindsight you regret, not doing the WWE?
No, because we see what happens with a lot of these athletes. You know what I mean? They have a very troubled, drug addicted like history. It's hard enough being a fighter, but a lot of those stories, most of them are dead. They hit my age and they're dead.
It's a tough life, isn't it, on the road?
It's
and
a
you got
tough.
to keep that schedule, that routine. Your body has to go through so much. You've got to do something to get your body through it. And unfortunately, yeah, as you said, a lot of them turn to something else to get them through.
That's where you have to, and like I said, my coach was in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, I could have wrestled for Inoki, and then Sean was like, no, we need to keep you fighting, whatever. So turn those things down. But I remember when my manager came to me, he goes, hey, because if you remember at that time, it was like this whole worldwide thing, and people were standing in line for hours to like get a tryout with like this American Gladiator thing. And I'm like, what do we do? Rick Bassman was his name. And he advised, you don't have managers in wrestling, but you have advisors. So he advised a lot of guys and women. And he was like, he goes, no, you still have to, try out and do what you have to do, but you'll go straight to like the NBC studios. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then they started telling me who was involved in it. And it's like fitness people, right? Like Michael Hearn. And then there was like a lot of like fitness competitors. And I went, they wanted a fighter. They had specifically wanted a fighter. And I go, this is going to be dumb. Exactly what I said. I go, this is going to be fucking stupid. And he's like, Erin, I'm telling you, they're going to pay you really well. You should really do it. I go, no. And I turned it down. And they ended up hiring Gina. They hired Gina Carano. And as you know, she shot to fame. So they did a second season because the ratings did very, very well. And they cut a couple of the women because they were just not good athletes, right? Like, they were fitness people and they wanted more rough and tumble. They specifically asked for me. That didn't mean I was going to get hired, right? But they specifically asked for me to come back and do a tryout. And it was fucking gnarly. We had to do a whole gimmick, right? I had to do a gimmick. They do drug testing, they do psychological testing, it's very extensive, right? But this is NBC. They don't care who you are. If you're a liability or like some maniac, like, they're not going to hire you. The contracts were like this. You sign your life away, right? If you die on one of these apparatus that they create, and they own your likeness, just like wrestling. It's a show business, right? And I just go, okay. So I remember I was like, I can pass all this other stuff. I'm in like peak physical. I'm like in like the best shape of my life at that time. And the last bit of it, you have to go up to the top floor to all of the executives. They're in a round table. There was like 15 of them or 10 of them or something. And I'm like, oh my God. And I had to go up there and do a gimmick, a wrestling gimmick. Like, I was a heel. I'm a heel. I'm not a baby face. I've always been a heel, right? And I just, whatever I did, and I scared the shit out of some of the guys. And then right? I was like, what? Whatever my thing was. And they hired me. So they only ended up canceling that because some people, they go, oh, the ratings weren't good. The ratings were really, really great. It was reality TV started to come in at that time, like the Jersey Shore, all these things. And
okay,
they didn't have to pay people. We got paid very, very well. People were going to make fools of themselves for free. So reality TV like really came in at that time. And they could have done it. It would have been rad. They could have done another season because we were all like, yay, let's do it. And they didn't. And then again, I was still fighting, give or take. So I was married right before that. I got married again after that. I was living in Vegas right after American Gladiators. My ex-husband's name was Neil Melanson. He's a very famous catch wrestler. He trained Randy, Vidor. He trained everyone. So when I was living in Vegas, I got an opportunity. The Strike Force signed me, and I had the 5th highest paid contract, male or female. I was ranked high. I was going to be like, again, fighting Marlos was in there. Pena was in there. Amanda Nunes was in there at the same time. Ronda Rousey was in there, and Cyborg. Like, I would have fought all of them. Be that as it may, that's not what happened. I pulled out a bunch of fights because I had an injury, and then I became a pain pill addict. And I was taking at one point, I don't know if you know what Norco is. Do you know what Norco is? Maybe it's under a different name there, but it's probably, a Vicodin. Yeah. It's a Vicodin, right? A very powerful painkiller. But what kills people when they take too much painkiller medication is not the painkiller. It's the acetaminophen, right? Like in a Tylenol. Like if you take a Tylenol, right, it says 500. Okay, that's the amount of acetaminophen. It'll shut your liver down.
There's the mixing of drugs, basically, is what kills you.
So then they created a drug that was higher in pain, in efficacy for like the pain medication, but because the combination of it is what works with the body, right? Like take the temperature down, whatever, how they make it. But so when they created this drug that had less acetaminophen, Tylenol in it, all the drug addicts were very happy that we could take 10 times more, because if you took the same amount with the other drug, your liver would shut down. You would die. So at one point I was taking 30. You're supposed to take 6 a day, one every like 6 hours if you're dying from AIDS or cancer or something. And I was taking 5 at a time every 3 hours. So at one point I was taking 30 Norco a day. I probably would have taken more of that if I hadn't, you have to space them out and make sure. So,
you had a plan. You had a plan how to do it.
Oh yeah. When you're that bad, you can't even get out of bed. You have to have like a week planned, because you're going to take a month's worth of drugs in 5 days.
Wow.
And I've done a lot of interviews on this, right? And I think I wrote something earlier. It's like, it's very good to talk about this because most people die, right? Like everyone's dying and a lot of people are addicted on this. So I had, completely fucked up my Strike Force contract, because I'm like, was fighting at a couple other places, but they weren't drug testing. It was on Indian reservation. They don't drug test in it here. But when you're going to be under something with the commission, they're going to drug test you. Like Cyborg during that time got popped for steroids because she's a roid head, right? It would have come out with me. It would have been like, Erin's on enough like painkiller medication to kill like 20 people. You know what I mean? So I kept a good run going for a few years, by the way, like no one really knew. And then when you're that bad, it only lasts for so long, and the drug is going to run out. This is, they made a lot of very good advances right around that 2011-12 time to really crack down on how rampant that drug is and how bad, right? Because we were calling at this time, you could still like pretend you're the doctor, and we would call in the pharmacy and be like, because we would steal the stuff, you know what I mean? And be like, hey, this is the doctor who's doing this. And you would just go in there and hope that you didn't get arrested, So, and then again, I was very sad. I would have been, it's like, if I had kept going like that, it's like, you're going to eventually die. So I had like I went in to try to get more pain medication from a doctor, and they started pulling, I don't know what they're called in your country, but they're called in America, DEA records, right? That DEA record has all of your prescription medication on it. Now they pull them. They can just fax them and go, okay, what is this person on? They weren't doing that back then. And I come in and I actually had a legitimate injury. I broke my ribs in sparring, and I'm trying to get more drugs. And she comes out and she goes, do you think you have a problem? I had like 15 doctors on there, and you're supposed to have one, right? And it's a federal offense. You can go to prison for that stuff.
Really?
And I mean, at that point, my liver, they did like panels on my liver and all that stuff, and it was like shutting down. Like, she was like, either you're gonna have to get help, or you know what the other avenue is.
Mm.
And I got clean the end of 2011. And I struggled. Of course, I had one more fight right around that time, by the way, MMA, that I lost. A girl that on a decision, a girl that I could have whooped her ass. But here I am. I'm so like out of my mind at that time. And I'm thinking, if I pull out of another fight, I already destroyed my contract. I'm thinking, I have to do this fight. If I pull out of, my career is going to be over. My career was already over. My career I had already like burned a lot of bridges because I pulled out of all these fights. And they're like, what is happening? You know, and I wasn't going to tell them I was suffering from a drug addiction. I should have put myself in a, you know, be that as it may, that's not what happened. So I got help. And then it was for a few years, bad, lost everything, right? My marriage. I lost my condo. I had $80,000, $90,000 car that I lost. It got repoed. At one point I was homeless. You know, this is like 2011, 12, 13. It was bad for a few years. And then I was like, all right, time to get your shit together. And then, honest to God, like the past handful of years is just like me each day, you know, because it's very easy when you're all the way at rock bottom. It's like, it's very easy to give up. That's why most people do. And I was very
Yeah.
close to that. I was very close to that because I was like, I'd already had a lot of family trauma and stuff too. And I was like, I don't care. Because
Mm.
I've never been suicidal. Like, I've never struggled with that type of stuff. But when you're this deep in your addiction and you've lost everything, you don't care anymore. You really don't care. And so that's very dangerous. Like, once you lose that, you don't care. Oh, this person wants to do something. You can, like, you're at a very dangerous low point in your life. So, because you have nothing to lose,
Mm.
you lost everything anyway. You don't have anything, you know? And I was getting in more trouble than I had since I was in my 20s and teens because I'm doing bad things, hanging around bad people, making bad, poor decisions. And I just remember I was like disgusted. I was really like disgusted with myself from like where I was and like how far I let myself go. And no one knew. I didn't tell people. Like, it wasn't even until later on, like, I told people what was happening because I had moved out of the area too. Like LA, I moved somewhere else. And you know, and thank God, got through it.
So what was the turning point? Was it when they said it's either, your liver's going to pack up and that's going to result in basically
Mm-hmm.
blind death? Was that
Mm-hmm.
the turning point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then, how
Yeah.
difficult was it, to come back and fight as well after so long layoff, whilst going through issues as well?
Well, you know, I'm sure there's going to be people out here listening who are either currently addicted to medication, because a lot of people are, or people who have gotten off this. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life, and this is getting off that medication. I mean, that stuff is like satanic. There's a reason they make this medication a certain way where it's like life or death to get off. So that took me, even just to feel normal again, coach, like just to even feel normal, it took over 2 years. Right. So fighting is like very far. I'm just trying to like get out of being homeless, trying to get my car back, like all of this stuff. And yeah, I just remember it was like little by little. And then I started reaching out to people and asking for help because I was too very prideful, right? Pride cometh before the fall. And I fell fucking hard. And I remember I was like, I have to ask people for help. And I started reaching out to people, and I have very good people in my life, right? And I went, okay, and then this person helped me. Why didn't you tell me? Da, da, da. Why didn't you? Well, it doesn't matter. but I was like, I need your help right now. So I went from like being homeless and losing everything. A couple years before that, was married, had a big house in Las Vegas with my husband. He was in the corner for all the UFC fighters. Here we are all up, to needing money from my friends so I can like stay in a hotel. I lived in like a motel for a while. And then just again, little by little, and then got enough money to rent a room. Then got enough money to get a little place of my own. And it just kind of went up and up and up. And I think it was, I had my first coming back was like 2019, right? I'm in a very good place by that time. But this had to be, do you remember when the first time that I actually got asked to fight, which is what made this start moving for me again, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to fight. Cyborg was still signed to the UFC. This is before she fucked her contract up, right? And had to go to Bellator. So I had been training, but I wasn't in like fight shape. But Dana White, I've always talked to him on and off. I have a nice like relationship with him. He's been around a long time, like I have. And he messaged me and he asked me if I would fight Cyborg. This is when she fought at the Anaheim, or at the Pond here, right? We have a big location here. And I think she ended up fighting, I don't remember what the fucking girl's name is, Tanya Evinger. So whenever that was, I feel that was maybe like 2016 or 17, something like that. You'd have to look it up. But he asked me, and I was training at American Gym, and he goes, you guys are both from here. Will you fight her? And I was like, Dana, I can't make 145 pounds. I'm like, I can't make that right off the bat. I go, give me any other fight. Any other fight. Because she was still very good and she'd been training, right? And I'm like, I hadn't fought in years. And I'm like, I'll fight her. I go, give me fucking Holly Holm. Give me anybody. I go, I'll fight anybody else. But I go, I need one fight. And I remember what he said, because he goes, I'm not even sure. He wasn't even sure if he was going to keep the women's divisions, right? At that time. And then I was like, I can't do it. I can do it. Could I have made 145? Yes. It would have been fucking awful because I've done it before. Would I have gotten paid a lot of money? Yes. Probably more than a lot of my fights combined that I ended up fighting. But I was like, didn't want to be a highlight reel. I wasn't going to go out there for the paycheck. You know what I mean? And be like, oh, I lost because of the weight cut. Fuck no. I was like, right. But I could have probably bought a house with that money. So, and then later on, just kind of whatever. So I had gotten the, was whatever in 2000, end of 2018, and Golden Boy MMA, right? Oscar De La Hoya did one show, Golden Boy MMA. Okay. That was here at the Forum. And it was Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell, right? And Tito beat the living, Tito like knocked out Chuck, but it was Tito versus Chuck. Chuck was training with us at a place called the Body Shop in Lakewood, which is where Antonio McKee and AJ McKee, who's the Bellator champ, he's rad. Do you know who that is?
No, but Chuck Liddell's one of my favourite fighters, though. I used to love Chuck Liddell, the Iceman, isn't he? I think I watched that fight you mentioned he fought Ortiz. Because he knocked Ortiz out as well, didn't he? He knocked him out first.
Yeah, in the UFC, like beat his ass. And so now, we're all the same age. Tito's my age. I've known him the whole time. Chuck is a few years older than us. And so he's training. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's like our team against their team. So I hadn't fought MMA in 8 years. You do the math. I'm horrible at math. But they couldn't find, I even tried to get some women to fight me. So I think like 8 different women turned the fight down. So I was originally supposed to make a comeback from MMA. I stopped doing boxing because when I lost to Layla, right after that, I fought Laura Ramsey, okay, and beat the shit out of her. Then I gave her a rematch And this is one where she hit me so hard it knocked me out of the ring. Right. And then she wouldn't give me a rematch. My dad died 3 days before that fight with her, and I still fought. Why? I don't know. But she hit me with this overhand right. It hit me. My ass sat on the spacers. They weren't tied together. They opened. I fell on the judge's table and almost broke my back. This was like '06. And they give you 20 seconds when you fall outside of the fucking ring to get back in. And what I do, I've been knocked down 3 times in my career, 3 times. One in that fight, 2 with a fight that I had with Raquel Miller, and I got up both times too. And I was like, I'm ready. And the guy's like, we're going to call it. So after that, I went, it's too hard to do both because I was doing them at a high level. And so I, like I said, put the boxing to the side and then focused on the MMA. And because I know that I could get a Strikeforce contract. I know that we'll be in the UFC one day. There's more opportunities. So, that card, Oscar never ended up even doing another one again. He wanted to like take over MMA. The thing flopped. It did fucking horrible. But 360 had a fight for boxing a couple months after that. And I remember Chuck Bosacker called me and he goes, hey, you want to fight Maricelo Cornejo? It's a 8-round main event for 360. And Tom Loeffler does that show. That's Gennady Golovkin's promoter. It's Tom Loeffler. And so it's a regional show. It's a very good club show. Me, because I'm a crazy and I love to fight, I go, 12-year layoff? Fighting a former world champion? Main event, 8 round? No problem. And I did. And anybody who saw that fight knows I beat her. I beat the brakes off her. And they gave it to her because I was B-side. And that's fucking how that rolls, but everybody knows I beat her. There's like not, the only person who probably thinks she won is her. And right. And then I fought Raquel Miller after that, who was Team USA. I mean, what the fuck is the point of me fighting? If I'm going to come back for fun, my career is over, right? These last few years, I'm not fighting because I have a career and I'm like, I'm going to go for I'm a world title challenger. I fought for the WBC belt against Layla Ali. I've done some pretty incredible things in my career. I didn't know how important that was until later on. But, Madi was a former WBC champion. Then Raquel Miller, she beat me. They stopped it. She didn't knock me out. She dropped me 2 times, one in the first, one in the 7th. And then the guy goes, oh, no. Like, bro, fuck you. At least he could have let me finish the fight, right? I was losing. But she was 9-0. Like, these women and the 3 women that I fought, you couldn't even get them to fucking fight each other. And I'm like, then why are you guys doing this? Right here I am. I'm in my 40s and fighting these women. And they're like minimum a decade younger than me, like in their prime. And you can't get them to fight. So Raquel beat me. And then I fought Hannah Rankin, who was a former world champion. Then she won a WBC. I like her. We're friends on Facebook. I think that fight could have been a draw. Again, I'm B-side. I know I got to knock her out to win. She's not a better boxer than me. Nice lady, right? But they offered me the fight. So I said, yeah. But I knew I'd have to knock her out, and that's not what happened. So here I am, 0-3 in boxing, when I should really be 1-1-1.
It's interesting you mentioned that, you're willing to fight everyone and they weren't fighting each other. So the mindset, what was your mindset for not just for fighting, but taking on new challenges? You, as I said before, you went from boxing to mixed martial arts, bare-knuckle. So what's the mindset when you try to break down your mindset needed for someone to fight in different disciplines, become proficient in each one as well? What is the mindset you take into it, and where does that come from?
Well, I can tell you the mindset from where I am in my 40s compared to late 20s and 30s is completely different. Okay. I didn't even know who the fuck I was until I was 35, 36, 37. Right. So I give a lot of grace for these people because I understand when you're growing, our brains aren't even formed till we're 25. Right. Like, people think that they know who they are. You don't know who you are. You don't know who you are. My drive for fighting back then was different than it is now, right? I was very, of course, competitive, very ego driven, right? Very concerned when I was on TV and this and all that, very concerned about what people thought about me. Very concerned. What if what? But still, I always fought. I never turned down a fight, but I was very ran by how other people saw me. What if I look bad doing this? What if I don't look good doing this? How is this going to look? Oh, I'm in this. And if I leave it, what are people going to say?
So
That's how
did
most
you
people,
so did you put pressure on yourself, unnecessary pressure on yourself?
absolutely. And I always excelled in everything in athletics, right? I mean, I was always, I can't look bad. I can't, like, I said, I'm going to do this. So it means I have to do this. Now, these things are very true, and I believe everything. So when I say I'm going to beat somebody, I believe that. You know what I mean? But there's outside in forces that are maybe pushing me. I'm letting them push me towards things that maybe I don't really want to do because I'm not fighting. When I was during that time too, I love to fight. Don't get me wrong. And a lot of the stuff I did was like because I love to fight. But it's sometimes at those points in your life, you're doing that for the people around you. You'll hear that all the time. Fighters go, I did it for my family, or I did it for my coach. That's like the last person you should be doing it for. You should be doing it for you. But I didn't understand that at the time, right? Because I had a lot of publicity and fame. And when you're at that age too, you don't know how to deal with a lot of that stuff. It's like I was never like a fucking Tank Davis, but you can see how like these Ryan Garcias, these guys, and they're getting millions upon millions upon millions, and they're young. They're in their early 20s. Like it's very hard for people to. I never had that type of fame, but within my MMA community, I did. I was very well known, but I was not some like a Layla Ali, right? She was the household name.
Yeah, social media's changed the whole landscape, hasn't it?
Hasn't it? It really has. So like back then you'd have to, if you were fighting, and you'd have to do it on your laurels, right? Like you'd have to really, there wasn't all this other stuff that you could put online and say and do this. It was like you had to just go out there, and people I liked you or they didn't. You had charisma. Charisma is the one thing social media cannot change. You got it or you don't.
Mm.
And that's a fact. So like I know I'm charismatic. I know I can speak well. I know I'm a good heel. I know I'm a people person, and people like that. And I think like I'm a regular person too. Like, and Layla had a lot of charisma too. So, you get these McGregor, like Mayweather, you get these people where it transcends Gennady, Canelo. Like people, they don't even have to speak the language, but there's something that you're drawn to that you identify with or you like. And those things you can't buy those things. So, fast forwarding, coming back now to fight, I stopped giving a fuck what people think, like in my late 30s. So when somebody came up to me the other day at a fight, literally Sunday, at this amateur fight where some of our kids were fighting, and he goes, I follow you. And he goes, I love how you just call people out and blah, blah. He goes, you really don't give a fuck, do you? And I go, I don't. It's real. You know what I mean? And it's the most freeing. I've never been so free in my life than when I stopped caring about what other people thought about me.
I think that's something that comes with age as well, doesn't it? As we grow up, as we grow older, I feel the
Yes.
same way. When you're younger, you're
Yes.
more conscious of what
Of
people think of you.
course.
You care more
Of
about it. But yeah,
course.
when you get older,
Yes.
you let things
You
go, and
you
your real
just stop
personality comes out.
caring. Yeah.
Mm.
Like you can look back at interviews 20 years ago and I'm still me. I'm a little more like maybe not as in my early 20s, not as sure because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I've always been very a transparent, like I think I'm pretty funny, just very honest, right? Like I'm a very blunt person.
I mean, I've seen some of your interviews from when you were say when you were fighting like in Japan, and I think there's a certain attitude to you. You
Yeah.
can you, it's hard to put into words, but yes, I think it's a self assuredness, and there's an attitude as in Do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah,
So
that's always,
something
I've
like
always kind of,
that.
yeah, that's always been me. I'm like, do you know who the fuck you're talking to? Right. But I think that's true. So it's like I said, it's like I've always been, because you can tell when people, it's fake. You can tell when it's an act. It's never been an act with me. You know, it may, were there times when I'm terrified and nervous? Absolutely. That's real. Anybody who says that they don't get nervous or scared or like worried later on in my career, not really, because I'm just kind of like, I know what to do. I've been here many times, right? It's do your job. But in the beginning, even though I had 10, 12, 13 fights, I've had 31 fucking pro fights now. You got 10 or 12, that's still new. That's still like pretty new. And I'm doing different sport, two different sports, but the confidence that I have in myself is real. And they used to call me very arrogant, right? And maybe I was, because there was probably a little bit of insecurity with that, can be arrogance, right? Like I don't feel like I'm arrogant now because I'm just
No, yeah,
like,
you don't come across as arrogant.
I
No.
don't I don't feel like I am. I feel like, but I've always had, because of sports and my dad, I've always, even though some back then they can say different, but it's like I've always had humility and respect. And my dad instilled that with me. So I'm very much the person, like I mirror what you give me. I'm not going to arbitrarily like be a fucking dick to you. But if you come at me out of pocket and you act a certain way, be ready, because you're going to get it like times 10. But if you love me and you show me respect, I never give anybody anything but respect when I meet them. Now, how we're going to move forward is going to depend on you, right? So the person who asked that question, that's the difference. Now, when I came back to fight, I didn't, you think I don't know that all these people were talking shit? A 41-year-old going against Madi, who's 30, and they're going, she's too fucking old. I looked younger than Madi. Okay. Like when you look at our weigh-in pictures, like I look better than her. That's just the fact, right? And it's like, you don't even know who's what age is what, right? We look the same, we're the same height. And people were like, I don't know. I mean, I kind of know Erin. And then other people were like, oh, fuck, she hasn't fought in a decade. She should be like, dig her own grave for this shit. You think I didn't see a couple of those? I laughed. She's too fucking old. All right. Watch me. I came back for me, but there was nothing to prove. What was I going to go out there? Like, show the fucking world I can beat this chick? Like, I did it for me. So that's my drive coming back 12 years later, is like, I messed up a lot of things. This is why I tell the kids nowadays, it's like, you get one shot. The only reason why I got a second shot is because of the people I know. I know a lot of people. And I had the opportunity I created these opportunities. Like they didn't just come to me like fucking crazy. I've been in the sport for almost 30 years, right? But again, I wanted to do those fights for me. It wasn't for money. I made some decent money in another type of fight, but it's like, no, because I like to fight and I'm very violent and it's fun. It's fun.
So talking about the mindset required for fighting, and you've just given me reasons now. So what about fighting through adversity? Because I know you've had fights after the unfortunate passing of your sister, and then you fought, just was it a few weeks later, was it? And then again, you mentioned earlier in the interview your father passed away, and you fought 3 days later. So you mentioned you don't need to, you're fighting for yourself, or you want to prove these people wrong. So then, what is the motivation to fight through adversity after such a, these traumatic experiences with loved ones? This is what we all fear, isn't it? Loved ones passing away.
Oh,
Everyone
yes.
handles it differently. I mean, that's probably what I fear
Sure.
most. What I fear most, is someone close to your loved one passing away. To fight, go out and fight, blocked out your mind, and fight someone one on one in front of people. How did you manage that? How did you get through that? And what got you through that?
I'm telling you, I don't even fucking know how I did it. I don't know how I did it. I knew if I didn't we were so close. Me and my sister were like inseparable. So if you saw me, you saw her. It was like the Tohill sisters. So she was like me, but like blonde hair and like green eyes. Everybody, if you've known me from any time from 2004, and I know a lot of people around here, everyone knew my sister. And she died drinking and driving. This was in 2004. So actually, September 19th of this month will be like fucking 19 years. She was 24 years old. I think I was like 27. And I had already been training for it's a good little belt. I think it's called the GB Global Boxing Union. It's like a smaller one, but it was like a good belt. And anyway, I'd been training for that. And I think if I didn't, I mean, that was probably the worst. It's the worst thing that's I've had some pretty fucking awful shit happen in my life. And that is, it leaves you speechless. But I think if I didn't,
But it's a matter of just staying busy to keep your mind
yes,
off it. Is that how you
yes,
cope with it?
yes, yeah, I blocked it out for years. I was in denial. So I had that fight, and I remember it was the end of 2004. It was in Florida. Jerry Cooney was at that fight. I have a picture with him somewhere. Then a couple months later, I went to Japan, the end of the month. It was literally a month later, and that's when I fought 3 times in one night. Fast forward to 2005. A few months after that is when I fight Layla, right? Like, and then really, like, my dad died like a year, little over a year and a half after my sister. Like the two, you know, and during that little 2006-7 was when I had sustained an injury, right? Someone suplexed me on my neck. A guy did, and I almost broke my neck. And then that's when I had started taking the pain medication. And then I was like, oh, wow, now I really don't feel anything, literally. And then that just, all that stuff snowballs. So you got to, for me, because I have that type of personality where it's like, we have people like me, people like us, whatever, we have to find a balance. If I have that idle time, it's not good. You know what I mean? People are supposed to have goals. You don't need to fight, but people are supposed to be productive, not sitting on their ass all day watching TV or not having a job, something, a hobby, even if it's planting a garden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you have to make money off it. Something for humans are meant to do things, right? We're not meant to be sedentary and to just exist. You know,
Mm.
you want to try to live your life. So that's my personal opinion. I just know if I didn't stay busy and kept, oh, it would have been easy for me to just like really go off the rails, right? You know, and just fuck everyone. And, you
So,
know,
so you blocked out. So when did you get the time to grieve then?
after I got, it was really like a decade later, to tell you the
A
truth.
decade later. Wow.
Uh-huh. So through all of that stuff, because that happened in 2004, and you know, I just told you about what happened. Yes, I'm fighting, but then I had a drug addiction, and then I lose everything, and then I'm homeless, and then blah blah blah. And I remember because I was still, I would say I'm not an emotional person. I'm a passionate person. Like you can see me. Everything is like what I do is like I'm very passionate and I love stuff. I love love. I love being passionate. I'm not like a very irrational. I'm a very rational person. And I like to really operate most things with logic. That's how I've been able to run things a certain way. You can't be in this sport, like a man's sport, especially boxing, as long as I have, if you're manic. We're crazy. Fighters are crazy. That's a given. But you have to be consistently consistent in whatever you are. You know what I mean? So that every time somebody interacts with me, they know that's Erin. You know, they're not going to get fucking, I don't like people like that. It scares me when I see them one day and then they're different this day and different the next day. I'm a rational, logical human being that is extremely, extremely passionate. So I don't really, most of my decisions, 99.9 are with this. So even though this could be in pain, in immense pain, this there's no connection, right? It's like you can't let that go because then everything will go out the window. So you just like stay focused and really like, yeah, for a decade. And then, you know, you gain more clarity when you're off medication because you're not thinking straight. Everything is, I didn't even dream for like 5 years. I didn't even have a dream because when you're on that stuff, you're not the same. You're not you. It takes your soul. It kills your psyche, you know? So like, I'm not sober. I mean, I like to drink now and then and stuff, and I like my tequila, but it's like, if you're doing something every single day to deal with life, to deal with the reality of life, you're an addict. You know, people don't like to hear that. You know what I mean? Whether it's smoking or drinking or eating, it's like, um, so then through all of that, and I just remember I was dating this guy who I'm still friends with, who was helped me a lot in like getting my shit together. He goes, "What do you think about going back to therapy?" He goes, "Don't get mad. Don't get mad." He goes, "But I feel like," yeah, this is like 2015. He goes, "I feel like you still have a lot of anger with some stuff." And I was like, I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Just saying, you know, maybe think about going back to therapy." And I did. I started, it really helped me. It was like, I've been to therapy in different points in my life, right? When I was struggling in school and they're trying to figure out what's going on with me. Like, I'm a big proponent of therapy. I think it's one of the best things. And, you know, it's not as taboo anymore. It's a really good thing to have somebody with an objective point of view and that can really just, they can help you, you know, move through trauma or just like a fucking marriage or like, what do I do with my job? There's, you know, I'm typically my own counsel. That obviously wasn't working.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to share with someone, don't you?
You do it. You have to. You have to. So that really helped me, you know, and I'm very healed on it. But it's like, of course, anybody who's lost somebody close to them, today's 9/11, right? That was a huge thing. I know a lot of people who
Yeah.
lost people in that, in, you know, their brothers and sisters and family members. Does it get easier? It doesn't get easier. You just learn how to live with it. Because if you don't find a way to move through it, what's going to happen? You're going to, there's only two ways. You either go up or you go down, you know? So I'm very grateful to be here. I'm happy through all the shit that I've gone through, and anyone else who has been with me and they're still around. Like, most people are dead by the time they're 40. We're doing okay, you and I.
Mm.
And Annie. We're here.
Well, so before I get to user questions, I want to quickly
Yeah.
go through some of these ones. So your Instagram, as you mentioned before, you're getting well known for exposing coaches. So what
Ugh.
started that? What started that, and why? Why is that important to you to expose
Ugh.
these coaches?
The most important thing is because people die in this sport, right? In boxing. And I know again, it must be, you can give me your perspective as well. But I mean, you know, this is the age of everything is like instant gratification, right? I understand that. I understand that. And where along the way did being a fucking mitt person become cool?
When
When did
everyone
that,
saw
when,
Floyd Mayweather doing it.
right? Like, when did that fucking happen? People forever have been lying about fighting, right? We know that. That's like everybody secretly in their heart, they, you know, they wish they could fucking get in there. I get it. I mean, I get it. I would too. I think it's a pretty fucking rad thing to get in there and fight and whatever. Um, I expose people a lot who lie about that too. Like, right on their page, they're like, somebody will send me something. They'll be like, what is this? It says he's a professional fighter. Let me do my fucking recon, because I also know a lot of people too. And so, and then I'll go, do you want to explain yourself? When they don't, then I blast them. But it takes a lifetime of work, years and years and years and years to even be proficient in combat sports, right? Not even saying to like be able to go in, and no one's saying you have to fight. Okay, that's just something personal that people want to do. We all start somewhere. I started somewhere, but I've also always been the sport I always knew was bigger than me. I've always known that. You're not going to be better than the fucking sport, right? I've maintained humility, respect, gratitude, all the things that a true martial artist should, right? Because that's what I believe that it's about. Respect, humility, and um bettering yourself as a fucking person. You know, I've become a better person through sports and through martial arts. Thank God. Like many of us, right? Like Sean Strickland was saying, he's like, if it wasn't for that, I'd be dead or in jail. Same thing. Are you kidding? If it wasn't for martial arts, I would be in prison or dead, right? So for people like us, thank God. And then there's some people who just love to do it because that's just part, whatever. Okay. I don't like people fucking lying. I don't like people lying about their station in life, right? It's like, if you accomplish something, great. Whether you win, lose, or draw, great, but you did it, right? Don't lie about it. Don't put something out there that, especially in this fucking day and age. And just because you fought doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach. And we said there's some people that didn't fight at all, but you know, you aren't Ray Arcel. People think they're fucking Ray Arcel, right? And they don't even know who the guy is. So they are out there. They have no concept. Maybe they've been training for a year as a fitness style, right? Now, remember, my target is very specific. I don't target people who are trying to learn. I can tell I have my sixth sense is like extreme and very intuitive with people and human fucking nature. I know people very well. I get a very good grasp of who you are by just let me read a little bit and let me see what you're saying. I can tell pretty quickly. So, my big problem is the men, especially the women, right? Because I've called out a couple women. I've called out Coach Cam. I've called out the Mitt Queen. Okay. They can't hit the bag. And then, yeah, some people go, oh, I'm a hater. I'm a hater. Yeah, I'm a hater. No, I'm trying to save fucking lives, right? It's like, if you can't hit the bag, if you've never even sparred, you're not in the ring, you can't do anything, but you're out there training somebody to get in the ring and fight. No, I'm not okay with that. It's wrong. It's wrong. Put your time in, put your work in. If you're truly serious about the craft, you'll do what guys like, you know, Sam, who's Beterbiev's coach, same thing. I think Virgil Hill did this too. Started out as water bucket people, you know, then they started helping out at the fucking, they were gym rats. Gym rats. They lived, breathed, and ate it. Goosen lived, breathed, and ate it, right? And he, so like, they lived it. Then you got these people that are like, oh, it's fucking, I want to be on TV and I think I'm cool and I want to be in the corner. And it's like, they don't know anything. They have no respect for the sport. They don't know anything about it. They haven't apprenticed under anyone. You don't, okay, if you don't want to fight, that's fine. Go apprentice. Go put the work in, at least spar, at least be in there. You're telling people, it's always the people telling you to take the hits that have never taken them. That's my opinion.
I think social media has a lot to do with it as well. People
Of
are
course.
foregoing the fundamentals and the basics because they're looking for flashy content, and the boring stuff just doesn't get as many views as some.
That's right.
I mean, I saw some of the videos you posted. These coaches, some of the moves they were teaching their followers, it's just not going to work. I
Right.
mean, we know. I mean, you've all said a lot of fights. You've done counter sparring. We know when you're in the ring. For example, an outside slip counter. When you're actually sparring someone in front of you, if you want to do that move, it's going through your mind. I might get hit if I do this. So often you pull out of moves because you know it's just too dangerous. But yet people
Mm-hmm.
will teach some of these moves that are complicated.
Because
It's just not
they
going to
don't
happen in real
know.
time.
Right. Because they
Things
don't
happen
know.
too fast. Yeah.
They just don't know the sport. What I tell people too is I've learned more in the last 5 years than in fucking almost my whole career with boxing. And a lot of that has to do with Buddy.
which
He
is my next
showed,
question.
yes, he showed me shit where like blows my mind, you know? And so when you really, there's levels, of course, to everything. And I see fighters that are very good fighters, but that doesn't mean they can, even they make mistakes when they're coaching people, right? Which is kind of strange to me, where I go, do you know you're not supposed to do that? Or do you know that there's a response that it should be this way? This sport is so hard, and I'm still learning, right? I still learn every day. Every day when I watch Buddy, or like I talked to him this morning. I talked to him. He's in England right now with Dan Aziz and I think Khalil, who just fought. He's going to fight again. So he's in England right now. And if I have something to ask him, he's not big texter, right? So I got to get him on the horn and be like, what is this? I have a question on this. Or like I'll send him a quick video and he'll go, oh, okay, I don't like that, or do this. Because I'm a student, right? Like I'm a student. I've never stopped learning. And even in all the years that I've been training and fighting, honest to God, I'm sure there were times where I was like, yeah, I'm fucking pretty awesome. But there was never a time that I went, I know everything. I know everything. And this is what's lacking, is again, the humility and the fucking respect. I think that's what really makes me mad. It's not that you're out there trying to do your hustle, or fucking you're a fucking con man, con woman, you're a car fucking salesman, right? I've called those girls out and I'm like, come spar me. You don't like what I fucking say? Who's going to stop me? There was another girl in Canada who was doing awful shit, and I blasted her. She said something, I go, come spar me. We'll put it on Instagram Live and we'll get some. I've challenged all of them. Come kick my ass. You can't. At least I can put my money where my fucking mouth is, right? I know what to do. And so you get these people that are like, yeah, the flash and all that stuff. Like there's a place for all of that. There's a place for everything, but it's not in fighting. And you need, like, people are going around showing, like we always see at those people with the foot, with the hook that goes, the foot goes, maximum power comes from turning the fucking foot all the way that way. The pivot. Well, yeah, you can use the pivot, but that's not where power comes from. You know, I just blasted somebody the other day. He said something on my Sunday post, and it was his friend. He purposely messaged, like tagged his friend to go, look at me, look who I'm working with. And the guy goes, good. On my page, bro. He's like, good, but use your legs more. And if you pivot, you'll get more power. I fucking blasted him. I go, bro, if you're going to come to my page and you're going to give your fucking advice, you better know what the fuck you're talking about, because I do, you know, and I can go toe to toe with like anybody on like the science of fucking boxing. And I go, if you think the power comes from pivoting your foot, you should never, ever, ever teach. And that was me being nice. I'm being nice, you know.
It's one of those ones, same as like the hook, palm facing you, palm down. People have different opinions, but in an actual fight, if you're fighting and sparring, you cannot pivot your foot because it happens too fast. You can't do it. It's not going to happen. Even if you see guys on the bag, they're using the pivot when they hook. I guarantee you, in the fight or the sparring, they are not pivoting their foot anywhere near as much. It just happens too fast.
There was one time, and I made a post. This was like after Inouye, right? Because, you know, one time in like 8 of his fights, and I pointed this out, he missed the guy. It was only because he missed, and he's still facing, everything is facing his whole foot turned, right? Because he just ends up missing it. You're not fucking Inouye, bro. Like that guy is he's a fucking like next level. He already knows that he turned his foot and he knows what he has to do to get back, right? Like that's just like a common, like a fucking error he could do. So you see these guys that like Jonathan and Punch Therapy, they all block me, by the way, because I fucking run them so hard. I'm like, what are you going to say? Come back, then call me out. Call me out. If you want to bring some, go to my page. There's something that you feel that is not up to par with you, feel free. Why don't they? Because these people know deep in their heart, maybe not even deep, they know they're con people, right? If somebody called me out like that, I'd be like, you ready? Oh, I'd be fucking on them, right? I'd be like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's fucking challenge it. I've called up so many people. Not one single person has responded and said, well, what about? They haven't, because they know. Like, human nature is pretty good like that. Like, when you're conning people, when you're fucking trying to make money. They're like, you get guys like me, Mustafa, like we are, and many other good coaches. You are one of them as well, where it's like we share the information because we love it and we're passionate about what we do. And we were true students of the sport. Our main objective is not to making money and getting followers. Our main objective is to share the beauty of the sport and maybe educate people, or like, hey, this is what I really loved. Look at this. If we get followers and make money, it's a side effect of that, right? Because people are oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Let me follow them. They look like they know what they're doing. We don't put our content out there for that. That's the big difference between people like us and people like them. You can see what they're ran by. All the flash. Let me fucking wear this. I like to look nice too. But I'm not wearing, look, even in this interview, I'm like, I really, unless I'm going out about and I need to like look sexy on a date or for myself, I'm like, I'll look good. When I'm at the gym, I'm not wearing shorts with my ass hanging out because that's not my motive. That's not my objective. I'm very well respected in this sport for a reason, because I handle myself and I carry myself with fucking respect, and I treat others with respect. And these guys, I've been around a long time. I've been in the trenches, not like these dumb ding dong bird braid girls who come in there and they're like, oh, I'm sparring today. And they don't even have a headgear. And the guy is going, tick, 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 hitting them at fucking 5%. The stories that I could tell you where guys have tried to fucking knock me out, hit me so hard, right? The stuff that wouldn't even fly nowadays because of women's rights and feminism. If you came up in my day, oh man, I mean, I can't even count tens and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of rounds, right? Over 25, 28 years. Thousands of rounds. That's not even including just the last 5 years that I've been training, right? And with men, if the women were on my level good enough, usually we were going to fight them. I mean, I've sparred men, and men that never did not take it easy on me. And they would fight me like men too, or guys in jujitsu. I've had my arm broke because I'm beating some guy. Like, I mean, I've seen it. I've been there, and I paid my dues. Is a good way to say it.
I think it goes back to what you mentioned about being a student of the sport, how you've learned so much in the last 5 years. If people's intentions were good, then they would be willing to learn, because we all make mistakes coming up as coaches, because we keep learning. So
yes,
we've all done it, but you don't have that ego, because you're a student of sport. If it's going to help you, I mean, I've learned from so many coaches. Everyone I interview, including yourself, everyone I interview, I end up coming away with so much more knowledge.
Oh my God.
And sometimes you'll correct something you're doing based off something you heard a coach say or something you heard a coach saw. Say,
Absolutely.
you learn from guys who have been there before. But yeah, if your intentions are clean, you're just trying to make money and create fancy content. Yeah, then.
And people can see it. It's like there are people that can be fooled, right? That's why they say a sucker is born every minute. I understand that. And this sport is very complex and it's a science. So you can see with the people who don't understand it, of course, they're going to be hypnotized, right? Because they don't understand the core of what the sport is. The majority of people do not, only people like us and like high level people. And of course, flash, right? Like, ooh, it's like snake charmer, right? Like that's what fucking the coach was telling Sean Strickland. I thought that was pretty funny because Nick's like, he's fucking like snake charming you, man. He's like, get up, because it does. If things are very visual, and people don't want to take their time to learn. Everybody wants it quick. You think these guys who are at the top and the women who are at the top, it's a lifetime of body of work. So Again, I get great joy of calling out people like that guy that punch therapy, like I said, who ended up blocking me. Bro, you never even had a fight. You're telling people how to move like Bivol, how to jab like Crawford. And we're looking at every single piece of footwork that he's doing. Everything he's doing is just wrong. He's not going, I'm going to try to do this, right? Let me try. I'm going to have some fun. It might not be right. I have way more respect for somebody who does that and goes, I'm going to have fun with it. If you see something, I'm just, because I like coaches like that too, that go, well, I wouldn't call him a coach, but like a trainer, right? And they're like, oh, I'm going to try this. This guy thinks it looks like that. And he's teaching people that. It's wrong. It's wrong. And like, some people can say, I get way more people that appreciate what I do because I don't give a fuck. When I say I don't give a fuck, coming back to that, it really means I don't give a fuck what you think of me. I don't give a fuck what you say about me. If you have something to say, either say it to my face when you see me, or I don't do internet battles. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just going to post something. You don't got to like it. And you can say something and they don't say anything because they know I'm fucking right. You know, there's a specific target I have.
Yeah.
They're not random. They're these fucking, they think they're Hollywood actors and shit. And I remember I called a guy out around here a couple of years ago. Awful. And he was like a fitness trainer, right? And the thing went viral. I'm on my third account, by the way. I've had 2 other accounts that got reported. That got reported for bullying.
Oh wow.
So I was like, see, because I'm a slow learner too. Sometimes I learn things the hard way too. So I was like, okay, tone it down a little bit on this one. And I looked at his page and like I never put anything in writing. That's why I put everything I do is in public. It's in public. I'm not that person. You'll never find emails. You'll never find crazy shit. Me talking to people like behind closed doors, because that's not how I operate. I am transparent. If I have something to say, it's on a public forum, right? The truth, if you're truthful with your actions, whatever they are, it's going to save you a lot of like problems. It's the people who, like these guys, they lie about everything, right? It'll bite you in the ass. So he writes me this long fucking thing and I'm just reading it, right? I screenshot, I ended up posting it. But the guy's only been training for like 6 months and he went on and on and on about how great he was. What a great coach he was and how top level he thinks he is. Of course, I blasted him, right? And I said, this is what I talk about when I mean respect, humility. I've never called myself a great coach. I don't think I'm a great coach. I think Buddy's a great coach. Eddie Futch is a great coach. Those are great coaches. Freddie Roach, Nacho Bernstein, all the same guys that you like and you've interviewed. I think I'm a very good coach, solid, but I'm not a great coach. But one day I hope to be. But like these people, that's the thing. And they go, I'm great. What? Who fucking told you that? Who's lying to you? Who told you that? Who paid you to say that? Right? Like, I don't know. I think we're missing a lot of old school values. You know that. You know what I mean? It's like I would like, and that's why I like a guy like a Sean Strickland who just came out, the People's Champion. He's fucking old school. He's a young guy, but he's an old school soul. He believes in the same type of respect, humility, and operating things in a certain way. It's really, there's no gray nowadays. It's us versus them. That's my opinion on it, and like sometimes I interact with people and I go, what? What? I don't even know what you're talking about. So anyway,
Okay.
does that answer that question? I know I go on a lot of tangents because I'm a Gemini. So
Yeah, I think you comprehensively answered that one. So biggest success and biggest failure. I guess it doesn't have to be
Wow.
inside the ring. It can be,
Yeah,
life as well.
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that is a generalization. I think anytime you go through any type of loss, trauma, immense, whatever, because one thing, just going through one thing can completely kill you or debilitate you. If you've gone through a handful of things in a period of time, again, like many people have, and you're able to overcome those things and heal, and gratitude. That's what I've learned most from all the loss in my life is, and all the trauma and all the thing, whatever my narrative was growing up, right? Because I used to be very like, I grew up this way and I'm going to act this way. Well, it, you know, and then one day you wake up and you're like, I'm not my story, right? Like, that's not me. That's a facet of me. When you lose a big fight and your identity is fighting, that isn't me. It's a facet of me, but you learn that. So I think through all my losses, trauma, family stuff, or whatever, I think the biggest success is that, honest to fucking God, coach, is that I'm still here, that I'm alive, that I get to wake up every single day in this beautiful world and give back. Because I used to be very, very selfish, very self-driven. Where that's that ego, right? I was taking, take, 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 take. I was all about it. And when you lose everything, and I had a lot of material, I used to be very driven by material things, nice things. I had a lot of nice things. I live very modestly now. I'm happy. I'm grateful that I have a little studio in a really beautiful little area. I have my dog with me. I have a car that's paid off. I have food, clean water. I have a job, and I have a lot of people who love me and that I love them. Like, that's what's important. And if I'm still here and I can wake up every morning with gratitude, I know it sounds so corny, right? Because if I heard me when I was 25, this old lady,
If you
talking, I'd
saw
be like,
this interview in the future, you think, is that me talking?
I'd be all, tell that stupid bitch to shut the fuck up. For real. I would be like, what is she talking about? I really would. Um, and really, I mean, I think when you go through traumatic loss, or you lose everything, every fiber of your being, right? And if you can, as a human being, come back from that and choose to be a happy person, like I'm a happy person. I'm very happy. I'm very fulfilled. I have my moments too where I fucking go off the rails. But I think if you interact with me and you see me, like, I'm 46 years old. And I don't think I look like this by accident. I think a lot of it is just my mindset. And I take care of myself as well. But it's choosing happiness and to be in gratitude. So sounds
Yeah,
kind of like cliche or like trite or whatever, but I feel like, yeah, that's my biggest success, is being through it, despite everything
yeah.
that I've personally gone through. It's
It's
just
interesting,
it,
yeah, because
it happened
it's like your biggest success has come from your biggest failures in a way, in a roundabout way.
in
But
a way.
gratitude,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very important
Gratitude.
point about gratitude. I mean, you hear that
Yeah.
a lot now, but it's right. But you hear it a lot because it's right.
It's true. It's
So
true, you know.
going on from that, so what is something that people misunderstand about you the most? Perhaps it is, you know, you, the attitude and the
Mm.
ego is maybe sometimes you come off. Is that what you think people misunderstand about it most?
I think the people who know me, and if you interact with me with a little bit, I'm very loving. I'm a very loving human being. But
Well, we need to
I,
ask punch therapy this.
yeah, he might not concur with that. But like, again, I have to fucking fuck him, right? So I also have that side of me too, where it's like I don't take shit. I have massive boundaries. You know what I mean? Again, I know human nature, and I I'm not the person that's like, oh, I'm out there doing this for people. I do believe in selfless acts, you know what I mean? Because again, you can take, and I was very unfulfilled, even though I had the most at my life during that late 20s, early 30s before I kind of lost everything. And I looked great and all these things. I was at like one of the most unhappy points in my life. I was miserable, you know, because all these other things. So, um, I don't know. I think as a general thing, being a woman fighter as well, you're already misunderstood, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a male driven thing, and I understand that, but there are women that are like me, and I'm not talking about the ones who want to get on TV and who are only fighting for, I don't call that authentic. If you're trying to get a contract or a modeling gig or a fucking, you're not a true fighter. If you want to go in there and test yourself and prove yourself something, or if you're like a violent person like me or like a Sean Strickland and we need that outlet, like those are pretty valid reasons to do that. I think I've always felt misunderstood. I still do in general, because I know I present a lot of different facets to my personality. You know what I mean? I'm very dynamic. I know that. And I know who I am now. You know, I used to be, like I said, I didn't know who I was. So I was like, there were parts of me that I didn't even express because I didn't want to be judged, you know? And now it's like, I understand me. And when you connect with the right people, they're going to understand you too. And you're not even going to have to fucking explain yourself.
Yeah.
They're going to see you. They're going to see you for you,
Mm.
you know, because I was always like the person, Erin, you're doing this. Erin, stop doing this. Like my whole life, like, Erin, you're being like this. And I was always like bad, because I was always doing bad fucking things. And then I started parts of myself that I would, right? But when you do that, something else is going to come out. You're going to be angry or more, whatever. But this is what I found in life, where it's like your tribe. And it's not just your family. A lot of the times your family are the fucking ones you need to get the fuck away from. You know what I mean? There's like the fucking devil. But your tribe is the people who see you for you. And you could come from any different walk of life, any different whatever, but it's like it's unspoken. Real. You're real. And I'm very lucky. Like, I'm not one of those people who go, oh, I only had like one friend and I keep, I have a lot of fucking amazing people that I call friends around the world. And you got to be a good friend to have good friends, you know?
Yeah.
So, like I said, I know me and I accept me for me. So anytime I can tell when I interact with somebody that they're scared or intimidated, or I'll get this one a lot, like guys and women will say, oh, you're kind of scary or intimidated. I go, look, motherfucker, that has nothing to do. I go like that, and I say that, I confront people. I go, don't project your shit on me. I go, I have zero to do with your insecurities. I go, this has nothing to do with you. That shocks the shit out of people, right? Because if you're intimidated, that has nothing to do with me, you know?
Communication, isn't it? Communication. You've got to be able to communicate. Sometimes, like
Yeah.
as you said, these people are just projecting without actually communicating with someone.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
confront people a lot. You know what I mean? That's why people can't get shit over on me, because most people, they'll be like, you know, so if you're passive aggressive to me or you come out of pocket with me, all right, get ready. That's all I say. I say, get ready. But I'm a
Right.
very loving person. I think you can see that too. You know, I am a motherfucker. Don't get it twisted. I am, but I love animals. I love helping people. I love my people. And yeah, I got two sides. Got two sides.
Let's get on to the user questions. So first one we've got is from someone named Demo98. I think he follows both of us on Instagram.
Oh.
So he's mentioned, should MMA fighters train boxing in a boxing gym with boxers to improve their hands? So what's your opinion on this then? Should you, if you're learning boxing, stick to a boxing gym?
Yeah.
even
You
whilst
know,
competing in mixed martial arts.
I think that's why it's called MMA. You know what I mean? If you want to be proficient and stuff, it's like if I'm going to learn real wrestling, I'm not going to go to a kickboxing coach. You know what I mean? It's like you got to go to somebody who, and they don't got to be a Hall of Fame person, but they have to understand the MMA dynamics of striking. You know what I mean? Because boxing and MMA striking are different.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that because I've done both, but you're going to learn things. I've trained with enough people and I've been around a long enough time. It's like you should go to somebody who does boxing, but understands MMA as a whole.
There's not many
So,
coaches who would fit into that category because if you go into a boxing club, you're learning boxing, and then you go straight back into mixed martial arts, and you've got to prepare to be kicked in the shin. The boxing coach isn't always going to understand. Got to change your strike delivery, for example.
right.
There's I
Which,
think it's a small number of coaches who can do
which,
that.
right. Yeah. Which is why you have to go to somebody who does understand. You know what I mean? And they're out there, but they're rarer. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a lot of boxing coaches now, like you see, like Capetillo, who's out in Las Vegas and he trains like Brandon Moreno. Like these guys, he don't know shit about fucking MMA. Guarantee you. I guarantee you that. But the kid he knows he's just working on his hands. You know, it's like people got to figure shit out. It's like go take little bits from everything and then look, I don't care what sport it is. Your most important punch is your jab. Whether it's kickboxing, lethway, fucking bare knuckle, MMA, boxing, your most important punch is jab. Work on that. Try to perfect that. And then everything will come from that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think as going back to that social media fancy stuff, people are forgetting about the jab, which is unfortunate. They try to do 7, 8, 9, 10 punch combos, leading with a right hook or right uppercut.
Oh my God. Yeah, from the outside.
Yeah,
From the
exactly.
outside. I'm out here. Or they do
Yeah, yeah,
this. They do this. Can you
yeah.
imagine? Can you imagine your favorite coach looking at the camera while they were fucking holding? Could I imagine Buddy McGirt holding and going, or blindfolding somebody? Can you imagine? This is what I think of these Hall of Fame real like coaches, right? I go, like a Joe Goose, and let me blindfold myself and have Ryan Garcia hit. And then the next thing you're going to do is like, Buddy McGirt making him fucking throw tennis balls against the wall. Common sense isn't so common, like Voltaire said. So, if you really want to look at what is successful, it is what has been tried and true in boxing. You're these motherfuckers, and I call them out, even when they pay these other sites. Jonathan's another one, whatever his stupid name is. They pay those, and I hate it because I like these boxing sites, right? And every now and then his stupid ass face will come up there because he pays them to put his fucking ad up there, right? To promote his page. And he put something nonsensical up there like he did this morning. And I went, oh, Jonathan's back. I'm like, Jonathan, if you're going to do this, you have to, I actually tell him what to do instead of going back under. And then people go, that makes a lot of sense. I never looked at. So, we laugh and we go, we're doing God's work, right? It's like not all heroes wear capes, but I don't have the time to call him out all the time. But if he comes up on the feed, I'm like, bro, come on, help me, help you. Right.
So which sport? Now we use a question. Which sport is hard to prepare for in your experience? Boxing or MMA?
I think boxing is.
Really?
I think boxing is. I think MMA is a hard sport. Don't get me wrong, because it is. And I think it's a lot harder overall on the body. Maybe not on the head as much per se, even though you are getting thrown a lot and taken down and those impacts hurt as well, or you're getting kicked. But the accumulation of punches is not the same compared to the two. Again, let me go back to, let's say we're taking somebody who is a neophyte, somebody who's never done MMA in general. He's doing, let's say you give him boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, whatever you want to call it, wrestling and jujitsu. Okay. Well, you're doing all four of those. You're doing all four of those. You're not going to, you might excel in one of them, right? Because some people have the propensity to pick something up, maybe two of them. But you're not going to be exceptional very rarely, right? Unless it's like those special people that are the champions and whatever. But in boxing, it's one sport. And this is what separates you from the next guy. You usually look at MMA and the guy is at the top. Typically, the guy who's two is like, not always, but for the most part, kind of look at the fight that fucking happened the other day, right? With Izzy and fucking Strickland. Izzy looked like he never fought a day in his life, right? But you get two high level boxing guys for the most part. You know, it's pretty, at least, even if it doesn't last long or the guy gets knocked out, they're going at it. Like they're going at it. It's two sports, same thing. The MMA, I think, anyway, another long-winded fucking answer, but I think boxing is harder because you really have to be special in just one thing. The other one, you can be pretty good at a couple different things and then put it together to make something great.
The sweet science.
Yeah.
Okay, so who was the hardest punching female you fought or sparred?
That question was good. I saw it. Okay. The hardest I remember ever getting punched, boy, was in boxing, a girl named Dakota Stone. So I think I was 2-1, right? And I think she might have been 4-0. Again, I had no business fighting this girl because she was like a fucking national champion, had a ton of amateur fights, which I knew nothing about because my fucking person at the time threw me in there. I got a draw with her, okay? I'll never forget this. This is probably 2002, maybe 2001. She hit me so fucking hard. I froze. It was like I could have peed myself. That's how hard she hit me. I still remember that. The way that hit, that punch. I wasn't prepared for that. I was not prepared for something like that. The hardest I've ever been kicked was Marlos Kunin when we fought and she push kicked me. And I was like, still remember that. I mean, those are the things that could, like, they go right into your fucking liver or your spleen or like, boom, right? Because that's what they do. I can still feel that. And then the hardest that I'd ever been, one time I kicked. This is why I stopped kicking as well. That's why I started focusing on strikes, because I kicked that girl in my first fight, the kickboxing champion with like 45 fights. She checked me. I kicked her as hard as I could, almost. She checked me and she just went, I almost broke my fucking shin in half. So those are the three that I remember. Like everyone else was good. I didn't think Layla hit hard. She didn't hit hard. She was accurate, which is still very dangerous. Even when I got dropped with like Raquel, those are the ones that you really don't feel. You know what I mean? But I felt obviously some of these women have been big hitters, but those are the ones that I really like, I call moments of impact or something, you know? And again, like I stepped up to fight everyone. I was going to fight Ann Wolf. Her and I had a fight, a 6-round fight. Okay. And this was in Coushatta, Mississippi. It was Mia St. John was on the card. Eliza Olson fought Sunshine Fedeker, and I still talk to Eliza Olson. But they pulled her out. Something happened right before the fight. Literally, I'm warming up in the back in the trailer. They come out 20 minutes before and they go, and there was something that happened with her medicals and she's not fighting. Could I have won that fight? I don't know. I knew I had to get on my bike. I knew I couldn't stand and trade with her. Right. But I mean, I never tasted her. Most women didn't want to taste her fucking power. Right. Everybody was scared of her, but I stepped in to fight her. So I probably could have added her to the list, I imagine, if we did fight, but we didn't. So those are the three that I remember.
Okay. And that was Big House of 20 who asked that question. So good question from him. Okay, so what do you think is most effective martial art? And this was asked by Spiosha Sam. Interesting name. Most effective martial art then.
Or jujitsu. You know, it's like
And
90%.
why?
Because most people don't know how to stand fighting. You know, most people cannot fight standing up. Most fights go to the ground, right? You get these people that are like, and it's unless you get knock them out, you're gonna go to the ground. So it's very efficient for that, right? Just take the person down, break their arm. Especially, it's great for women too, right? Women, I'm all about self-defense for women. So yeah, I mean, boxing is great, but they better knock me out, because once I get a hold of you, it's gonna be over. So
Okay.
that's my opinion. I think jujitsu is the most effective for like you know what I mean? Like everyday fucking life.
Yeah. So this is
Yeah.
outside the ring as well, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Inside the ring, what I think is the most effective is wrestling and boxing.
Hmm.
You take a guy with great strikes that has a great takedown defense, or that can Chuck Liddell comes to mind, right? You got a guy that can strike, throw some kicks in there, but can wrestle. I think those are the two most effective for fighting. Striking and the boxing and the wrestling, not even jujitsu, wrestling. But I think for like outside the ring, if you have to fight for your life or something, I would say jujitsu is probably the best thing to train.
So the boxing programmer, he asks, what techniques do you use to move through fear?
Is that Cliff? I think that's Cliff. Hi, Cliff. What techniques do I use to move through fear? I don't.
Do you think it's repetition and being in that situation, and then the repetition built from that instinctively you carry yourself through fear?
Like if I'm going to go into a fight, right? Like, is
I'm
that what?
assuming he's asking, yeah,
Yeah.
fight, yeah. I don't know whether he's been to
Well,
fight in the ring or outside the ring, though.
well, I think, I mean, what is that saying? Like 90% is preparation, 10% perspiration, right? When I'm prepared and I've done my preparation for the fight, I'm not worried. I'm not nervous for that, because I know I've done my work.
Mm.
I've prepared, and when preparation meets opportunity, it's like, ooh, it's endless. So has there been fights that I wasn't fully prepared in because I either wasn't taking it seriously or absolutely, and that was earlier in my career. I was like, I didn't really care, and I'd still go in there and beat people's people up. But, the more that I started competing, like I said, student of the sport, got never not showed up to training because it was a hard day, like, I'm crying. This sucks. I have to run. Yeah, I know. That's why most people can't do it, right? Because they want to quit. I understand that. So, Cliff, I guess that's a good question, because it's like I'm always, there's always fear. Human nature, it's okay to feel fear, but if you look at how I've lived my life, especially the last like several years, fear doesn't run me. Fear has never stopped me from getting out there. That's what stops most people from living their lives, is fear of what other people are going to think, fear of looking bad, fear of being judged, fear of what somebody's going to say. Fuck, man, I don't like losing. Fuck it. But I'm definitely not worried about what somebody's going to fucking say. So I don't have any techniques to like prepare for that. I think it's just been an accumulation of all the years of like coming to fruition. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like they say, if you've got to be uncomfortable to become comfortable, don't you? So it's putting yourself through those situations. I mean, you're always going to have
Yes.
some sort of nerves, aren't you? But yeah,
Yes.
getting used
Yes.
to being
Uncomfortable. And just really quick,
You've been there, done that.
yes. And now that I've been there, like I said, even in these last handful of fights, even when I hadn't fought in 12 years and I fought Marty, I wasn't scared. wild, right? I wasn't scared. I wasn't worried. I know what I can do. I knew I would probably have some fucking ring rust or something, but I was like, who the fuck takes a 12-year layoff and comes to an 8-round main event against a former world champion? Everything in on that piece of paper says don't do it. You're going to look stupid. You're going to make yourself look stupid. You're going to get knocked out. No. I was like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So, I prepared. I only had a few months, but I prepared, and it's mental. This game is 85% mental. So you have to believe in yourself. You have to be realistic, but you got to believe in yourself.
Yeah. When you're fighting one-on-one, you have to believe in yourself.
And I manifest a lot, and I write a lot. So that I really believe in that as well. And I visualize a lot. I visualize winning, coming out, being safe, having my health. I'm going to win. I'm going to do this. This is what I prepared for. It's very important.
So these are some of the techniques then, I suppose, then visualization.
Yeah, that would be
manifestation. Yeah. Okay. So what would be your advice to upcoming female fighters, or those who want to pursue a career in fighting? Because as you mentioned, you were one of the pioneers of the sport. When you started, it wasn't a larger pool of female fighters. So then it's not a traditional path, so to speak. People don't always expect women to go into the fighting career. So what would be your advice to a female who wants to fight?
This is always a good question, because as being a woman who was, in the 90s and 2000, when there wasn't cameras around and sexual harassment, like, I know I joke about that sometimes, but it's a very serious thing, and you're gonna look, first things first, when you go to a gym, and I've been telling girls this for years, okay? Most important thing, I don't know how long you're going to stay there, but don't shit where you eat. Okay. Like, I tell these girls, if they're going to stay with a team and you want these men to respect you, like, no one said it was fair, right? No one said it's fair. Have some self-control. Don't sleep with all the people you're training with. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that over the years. One girl has run through the whole gym. Okay. You got to understand, it's like, it doesn't. Number two, you're going to be, whatever happens, the woman is going to be removed before the man is, typically, right? So you could find a great home there, but it's like, this is a man's world. And not to say that there's not more, like, understanding things that happen, but just have some self-respect. There's been guys that I ended up, like, was a boyfriend or something. We got together, but it was after, like, a very long consideration. What could happen? Look, if this doesn't work out, I don't want it to be weird. I don't want to go to my training every day and have it be weird with us, right? That's a real big concern. So just try to think in advance and don't shit where you eat. Also, make sure you feel comfortable. Follow your gut. We have women's intuition for a reason. If you don't feel comfortable or safe at that gym, whether it's the coach, somebody on the team, listen to that. Listen to that. That's really important. That's why we have our intuition, is to help us, right? And don't ever do anything that you're uncomfortable doing. Like, I'll never put any of my fighters in a situation that I haven't done myself, or I haven't seen myself. Again, going back to these coaches who are telling their fighters, and some of them are real fighters, go do this. You've never even been there. You haven't done that. You don't know what the repercussions are for that. I do. I've been there and I've seen it and I've done it. So I've never put any of my people, clients, whomever, in situations that I haven't been before. So I think those are, like, 3 really important things. And again, just, sexual harassment is really big, especially when they're everywhere. Predators are everywhere, right? This is females too. There's females in these, like, gyms that are doing this with. It happens a lot. It just is not as reported as much. So, don't let anyone touch you inappropriately. Don't let anyone make you feel uncomfortable. These are all things that I've experienced, by the way. People putting their hands in places that they shouldn't, pretending that we're training. These are coaches. You know what I mean? Oh, we're going to do this. And I'm thinking I'm like a kid and going, that doesn't feel right. I don't think his hand is supposed to be there. I don't think his hand should be in my pants. These are real. These are things that have happened. So, back then it was like, am I imagining this? Like I wasn't, right? But I didn't know what to say. So listen to your gut and your intuition, and your safety and your health is your first concern,
Yes, that's a very good advice, that is. Okay, I'm going to ask a question a little bit different. Have you ever had an experience you can't explain?
like an out of body experience, or like
Uh,
I saw a
uh,
ghost or something?
well, there could be anything you can't explain. Have you seen a ghost?
I have. I have seen one. I have seen one. Well, I'll tell you, I know that stuff is real too. With like, let me touch on like my sister. I remember this was a few years back, and I'm laying in bed. She'd been passed for a little bit. And I'm reading this book. This is maybe like 6, 7 years ago. My door is open. Nothing is happening. Something flies. I have a bookshelf, and something flies, and I hear a tink, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I go and I look on the floor, and it's a piece of a keychain that was hers, because I have bits and pieces of her stuff that is like, pictures and all that. That was her. I believe in that stuff. You know what I mean? Or you're thinking about them, and can you explain it? I don't know. I think everything is energy. You know what I mean? It's like
Totally
we are
agree.
metaphysical or not, whether you're scientific, this, whatever you think, we are energy. Everything is energy broken down,
It's funny you
right?
said that, because I was actually going to say the exact same thing. Everything
Right.
is energy. So
It is.
even when you pass away, the energy has to go somewhere.
It has to go somewhere.
Where it
To the
goes,
simplest.
who knows? I mean, people may
Yeah.
explain it in afterlife, heaven,
But it
hell,
doesn't
purgatory.
disappear,
Yeah, everything's energy. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Mm.
it doesn't just disappear. It's still there. It just goes into a different form or whatever. So, I mean, if you believe in that shit, I do. Some people definitely don't, but there's been other signs with like, those type of things where a door will fucking come like, what? Okay, Megan, they play tricks on us for sure, and they let us know that they're okay. So, can you explain that? Something that's tangible or that sounds logical or rational? Probably not, but does that happen? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's another topic we could probably talk for a long time about.
Oh,
Um, I mean, I've read a couple of books on boxing, history, whatever, but also wrote books on the paranormal as well.
you have.
Yeah, but I won't go into what my name was. So I changed my name for every book I wrote. So
I'm dead. Oh my God. All right. Okay.
yeah,
Because
but definitely
that's rad.
maybe in like some time, maybe when we have more time, take
Hmm.
some of
That's
those paranormal
exciting.
experiences. Yeah, yeah, those
That's
paranormal
really cool.
experiences, some
That's really
strange
cool.
ones. But I'm sure the guys who listen to the boxing, watch the boxing, probably don't want to hear us talk about
Right. That's why I'm like, all right.
that. Okay, so let's end with. So what are you doing now? What are your plans for the future?
I am, I'm always training people because I enjoy that, right? I enjoy again sharing my knowledge with boxing. I went through, I think last year was a difficult year for me, not because I stopped fighting, but I was going through like that age, right? I'm like, okay, I'm 45. I'm like, what do I want to, what? Because you can, I'm
I'm
always big
45
on
now.
like,
I'm 45
I know,
now.
I know, I know. That's what I think. That's why I feel like, because, we're kindred spirits, like you get it, right? And, there's a lot of people who like, I'm too old to do this. I'm too old to do that. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't put like limitations on stuff. I think there's rational things like, could I go back and fight? Yes. Do I think it's a reasonable, rational thing to do? Not really. I think there's a time where it's like, sit your fucking old ass down. You've done You've done a lot. You've got out of 31 fights without getting, like how Cyborg got knocked out by Nunes. Like, I've never been knocked out like that. So, knock on wood. But it's only a matter of time, right? The internet and Father Time is undefeated, right? So we'll leave that at that. But I'm trying to tell you the truth. I'm really trying to get my passion back for like teaching boxing, because I had a fighter last year that maybe most people saw me training, and I don't train her anymore. And I know how boxing is, right? I know how the history of boxing is, and it's a very brutal sport. And sometimes the people you think that would never stab you in the back are the first ones to do it. I understand that. And so when those things happen to coaches, and that happened to me, it was like, it defeated me for a while. You know what I mean? Because it was like years and years of, and without expectation.
Is defeated the right word or deflated?
I think both. You know what I mean?
Disappointed.
Disappointed is probably like, like just defeated might not be like the best context for that, but just more of the fact of like, it broke my heart. It's heartbreaking. You know what I mean? And any coach will tell you the same thing when they invest all that and they love that fighter, and they'll go to the ends of the earth. And I'll do that for any fighter that I'm with because they're my charge, right? And I care for them. Their health and their safety is my first concern. I'm not making money. Yeah, I'm making so much money from these people. I don't make money. I do it because I love it. Sometimes paths come to an end. Sometimes people change. Sometimes somebody dies. There's many things that can change the course of a relationship. But, I mean, you can see what happened with my mentor. There was a situation that just happened like that, and they were together from day one. That's not anymore. So those can, it took me a couple months to kind of like clear my head with that, and was like, do I want to do this again? Do I want to get back into teaching? Would I ever take a fighter from the ground up again? Absolutely not. Never, ever, ever would I invest that time creating somebody as like that. Would I help a fighter who is already like established and they need some help and but I mean, I don't really have an answer for that stuff. I'm just really in the moment, and I'm trying to just every day be a little bit better than what I was yesterday, and I'm human, like I said, 90% of the time I'm really like happy and flexible and go lucky and like a very optimistic person, but don't get it twisted. I have my days where I am like, I get down on myself too, or like every few months I have a good cry. That doesn't happen often, but it's probably every quarter. I'll have a good little cry, and then I pull it together, get your shit together. No one cares, work harder. So, I'm in the moment. I'm very proactive what I do. I don't just like skate through fucking life. I'm not like a gypsy or something, but this is the only thing that exists right now is this moment, right? Tomorrow doesn't exist. The past is already, you'll find you're happiest that you're just in the moment. And it's not easy also. That takes a lot of work. So,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what you're saying resonates with me as well. So yeah, I agree. It's not easy to live in the moment. You're always thinking to your future, and being a coach is a hard job as well. You mentioned investing time. I mean, I've taken a step back from pro coaching for those reasons.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time invested. Like I said, if something happens that doesn't work out, all that time you invested,
Right.
It's tough to lose someone in that way over those sort of reasons. I mean,
and it's a death too that people don't it's there will be a grieving process, because what I've learned as well in life is like good or bad, whatever there's lessons in all of that. There was amazing lessons in that, and I took, and a lot of good came out of that relationship as well. And I learned a lot, and I saw a lot. I was able to further her career, my career. I learned. So that's what I try when bad things happen, because bad things happen. They're always going to happen. It's not the first time and the last time something bad happens. But I try to take the good, because there's usually something good that happens, whether it's something with ourselves
Yeah.
but there's lessons in all of it. So you'll see people who are real stuck in the past, right? Where they're like, this person did this to me, or like, my mom told me I was an asshole when I was 10, and they're like 50 years old. I'm like, shut the fuck up. I don't care. Come to me with something good. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk about good shit. I'm not the person, if you're coming to me to like co-sign your victim story, I'll either walk away from you or like I'll hang up the phone. I'm that person, like after the third time I hear it, I'm like, all right. So,
Well, Erin, it's been a pleasure. It's been enlightening. Enjoyed hearing about your
yeah.
life story. Yeah, thank you
Well,
so
you
much for
and
your
I have
time.
talked so much too. We're like, I'm usually pretty comfortable talking, but like, cause you and I have talked quite a bit and, talked to your wife and stuff. And it's like, I'm even more comfortable. It's like, we've never met, but I talk about the energy. You just can
Maybe
feel it.
maybe next time I'll get Annie to do the interview.
She needs to come on here too. Oh my God. Well, always, thank you for your time as valuable as mine. So I know sometimes like I get to rambling and I go on little tangents, because I get very excited. I'm like a kid when I talk about things I'm excited about. So you kind of have to, okay.
Yeah, we did like estimate by an hour. It's become over 2 hours. So there, yeah. But
Is
it's
it
just,
really?
yeah, you don't even notice, do you? Because the conversation just flows, doesn't it? So
It
it's been
does.
good. Yeah,
All right. All right. Let's,
great stuff. Yeah, we'll catch up again on the weekend anyway.
okay. Okay. I'll see you
Definitely.
guys on Saturday then.
Yeah,
All right.
definitely.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you again. Thank you for your time
It's
again.
good to see you. Thank
All the
you.
best.